Good evening, everyone. It's Christopher Hale here in Rutherford County, candidate for United States Congress here in the 4th Congressional District. It is my honor tonight to have with us Mariah Phillips. Mariah Phillips is running for State House 37 here in Rutherford County. I know Mariah the best way you can know someone in political life, by being her opponent. Me and Mariah and Stephen Reynolds all competed for the 4th Congressional District nomination 2 short years ago. And what I learned about Mariah, and what no one can ever deny, is that she is the hardest working person here in Rutherford County. Mariah shows up time in and time out. She builds relationships. She does the work that it takes to be a public servant, a leader. Nothing's ever been given to Mariah on a silver platter. She's worked hard for everything in her life. She went back to school as an adult, got her undergrad and master's degree from Middle in education. Has been an educator, has worked multiple jobs for the majority of her life, and is also a mother of 5 wonderful children, many of whom I met on the campaign trail in 2018. It goes without saying that I think she'd be a wonderful representative for this community because she will actually show up and learn the issues and represent you, not from theoretical, the pie in the sky, but from lived experience. So, Mariah, it's my honor to have you join us. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. And Mariah, do you mind just introducing yourself again to the community?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Mariah Phillips, and I am running for State House in District 37. District 37 is the northwestern part of Rutherford County, so Smyrna, Laverne, and about a quarter of Murfreesboro. And so I am a teacher. I am a mother of 5 kids. I've been active in the community for many years, and I decided to run for office because I feel like we need elected officials that know our stories, know who we are, and are going to fight for our values every day.
And Mariah, so tell me a little bit. So you are running against a first-term representative. Tell me a little bit about his voting history. Particularly, I think you want to talk about maybe vouchers and other things that Charlie has voted for in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. My opinion is so it was not really it's interesting because he's really quiet. He's really he is just kind of good and he's kind of and it's interesting even though he is, kind of quiet outwardly, he's very active an example of that is he was just nominated to the University Whip. So even though he didn't hear a lot about him in public, he's definitely behind the scenes looking for the lobby for the University. And so that's something that is really important to know about him. Some of the pieces of legislation that I have been most aggrieved by, there are so many, was his vote for the voucher bill. He was someone who represents himself as a strong supporter of public education. In fact, he's even was on the City Schools Foundation here in Murfreesboro. And so everyone thought he would be a champion for education. However, when it came down to the vote for the passage of the ESA for the voucher bill, he supported it to the shock and awe of many of his friends. And so, any chance that anyone thinks that he may be independent in his thinking is not going to happen. He's going to vote with the Republican Party in every vote that they have, and that's what he's shown to do so far.
And Mariah, tell me a little bit about what your leadership would look like. What are your priorities if you become our next representative? What do you want to focus on in 2021, 2022?
Absolutely. So anything that's going to help the community and the people in the 37th district improve. And so actually what's good for the people of the 37th district is more than likely good for all of Tennessee. I would love to make sure that we can fight for expanded access to Medicaid. As you know, the state is turning away billions of dollars back to the federal government that we could be using, especially now when we are in an international pandemic and our state is having to deal with the consequences of not having access to affordable Medicaid across the state. Our hospitals across the state are closing, and we are literally giving away money and money that can be used to help in this pandemic, but also help our working families for the other health crises that they face. So fighting for better access to healthcare, more affordable healthcare, is definitely something that's important to me. Working families deserve to be able to afford to take care of their families. You don't want to have to make a decision about paying your light bill or paying your medical bill. And we see too many Tennessee families having to make that decision. So that's one thing. Public education, of course, is another. I was a U.S. government teacher at a high school here in Rutherford County for many years, and I taught U.S. government, personal finance, and wellness. So I have been really a strong advocate for public education. I was in the House in Nashville when they passed the voucher bill, begging my representatives not to vote for it, but unfortunately they did. So that's definitely something that I care about as well. And right now, as we're in this pandemic, something that I have definitely noticed is just a lack of overall leadership from our elected representatives at the state level, particularly. There's been no direction, no really confidence, and very little information about resources that are available. You've had some coming from the governor's office, but it kind of trickles down. But you haven't seen anything coming from our state legislators on the resources that are available, whether they're federal resources or some of the state unemployment benefits and things like that. I've noticed representatives from other parts of the state, specifically Nashville, who are making themselves available to other people outside of their district for help with things like unemployment insurance, helping to fill out those claims because they're very complicated. I'm the kind of person who is going to help solve the problems that we have instead of just ignore them as if they belong to you. As an elected official, I need to know what your concerns are and what your struggles are, and I need to help you figure out a way to make your life better. And so that's definitely something that I plan to do as an elected official.
And it's interesting too. I think one of the things you highlighted, I saw that John Ray Clemens in particular was helping out with unemployment, which is great. But it also communicates to me that there's a breakdown of the system when we have to have elected representatives, from Nashville going out, getting help from calling out on Twitter. I'll help you, because that's what our government's supposed to do. Do you think that this pandemic has revealed a lot of weaknesses in government that maybe were hidden before? And are there investments that you really want to see that our state make that we haven't made in the past? You talk about education. What are other things that we need to invest in that we haven't invested in so far in the past decade of Republican rule in the state?
Well, infrastructure is a huge one. Rutherford County is the fastest growing county one of the fastest growing counties in the country, top 10 the last time that I checked. And as one of the fastest growing communities in the country, we have not done a great job of keeping up with the infrastructure. And we've allowed development to continue to kind of drop apartments and condominium developments all throughout the community without really making sure that we have the water resources, the sewer resources, the trash resources, or the traffic patterns that are acceptable for the type of growth that's happening in our area. So some of that is on a local level, but some of that actually can be rolled up to the state level. We have a lot of state highways that we use in Murfreesboro particularly, and in the rest of the county that really could use some major improvements with the amount of traffic that we see on those roads. So infrastructure is definitely an under invested area. So that, and then, as I mentioned before, healthcare, of course, making sure that that's available. And just the way that I think we view the resources that our state and local governments have, I think is something that's very flawed. No one wants to pay more taxes.
let's just agree. Maybe you don't agree, Chris, but I feel like most people, if having the choice to pay more taxes or less taxes, they're going to often choose less taxes. No one wants to pay more taxes. However, when we continue to restrict taxation to a point where we can't fund the needs in our community, then we will pay for it eventually.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely right. And I think I've been thinking a lot about that. If hospital bills don't get paid, we will pay for them. It will always come back to us, and the taxpayer will pay in some capacity. The question is how we do it. Mariah, so it's interesting. So you and your family moved here in 2006.
2000.
In what ways have you seen, and what is in the past 12 years? Then 14 years here in Rutherford County. You've seen explosive growth, and it's interesting. I left for college in 2007 and came back in 17, 18, and so I kind of missed that period. I come back, and this town's exploded to the nth degree. What is your, so people ask this oftentimes, and I wonder what your opinion is. Are we growing too fast? Is that a concern that you have? Is there a proper way of growing, and who's being left behind in this growth? And what are the strengths and weaknesses of our growth rate?
Absolutely. I do believe that we are growing too fast. And somebody who's new here, of course, that I've been told to do a problem. And that, I think I definitely understand that our youth but there's a reason why we necessarily other counties and sometimes we have to the heart of the boom is what cracks at 2008. And so we told you that and so we moved here because so that's a really great people have a lot
of reasons for coming to Murfreesboro, Rutherford County in particular. Now, as we continue to grow, we have seen time and time again the Planning Commission on the local level approving a lot of rezoning opportunities for developers to come in and take what used to be zoned single-family properties into multifamily properties. And while I understand the economic reason for the developers to want to increase their number of properties on each parcel of land, what we are not doing, and this is where the growing too fast piece comes in, what we are not doing is planning ahead for the impact that will make on the infrastructure. So what we do is we find then that we are under-resourced for schools. Rutherford County builds a new school almost every year, whether it's at the high school, middle school, or elementary school level. We have to anticipate that when we are going to approve 700 condos in a development, that there will be an impact on our local schools. So we need to put that as part of our plan when we approve those projects. Now, I'm not running for the local level, but it is something that I see, and something that on the state level we could potentially do something to help mitigate that growth by allowing states to maybe implement a tax on the developers who want to change that zoning, to kind of change the way that they think about their property. An impact tax, which is some of the other counties are able to do that, but Rutherford County is not. So the state could help with making those types of projects more available.
Well, I have a question about that. So I've never heard of that before. So there's like an impact tax that like essentially bigger counties are allowed to take advantage of. Is that how that works? How would that exactly work?
So I don't know the ins and outs of how that works, but I do know that in Williamson County, they've been able to implement an impact tax. When I've talked to some of the local elected officials here locally, they said that that was a decision that was made at the state level. And so to be honest, I haven't looked into how to make that happen. And I need to, because that is definitely something that can help us in our community.
Well, it's interesting too, because one of the things that I actually had no clue about this until this recent crisis. 89 out of 95 counties in the state of Tennessee operate with a state-run county health department. And so about 3 weeks ago, I went to I guess it was the one downtown that they had the coronavirus, and hundreds of people got turned away, and it was remarkable seeing that. It brings to me a bigger question. It seems like the state has not understood that Rutherford County is a huge county, and we are very different from the 88 other counties that have state control. So is there a need to get Nashville a clue that Rutherford County is not some small county anymore, that it's not 1989, it's 2020? And what can you do on that?
Well, considering we have 4 representatives that represent Rutherford County in the State House and 2 state senators that represent Rutherford County in the State House, you would think we would have more of an impact in the state capitol. But for some reason, our elected officials don't seem to want to make Rutherford County a priority, and so they don't push for the things that will actually help our county. After the 2020 census is happening now. Hopefully you have completed your census. Anybody that's watching this, please make sure you complete your census. It's very important. But it's also an important thing to consider, because after the census, our state government will redraw the lines for redistricting. And with the growth that we've seen in Rutherford County, it's possible that we may even get a 5th representative here in Rutherford County.
So when you think about that, we have as much representation as almost any other major city across the state. We should be getting represented like that.
Well, it seems like our delegation, in my humble opinion, is batting below their pay grade. I mean, in terms of the impact that they should have. And I know that as soon as you step on the floor next January and take the oath of office, you'll have an immediate impact. Mariah, I want to step back, and we're going to take any questions folks have. Just getting to know you a little bit more personally. What compelled you in adulthood to go back to school, to get your degree, to become an educator? What made you decide to do that?
Being a mom. When my daughter was in middle school, my oldest daughter was in middle school, we had a conversation about the fact that I was going to make her go to college. And we were talking about where she might want to go, what she might want to think about. She was in middle school. She was a student athlete, and so that was something that was important to her. And so in that conversation, she said to me, you never finished your degree and you're okay. And so that clicked to me. Finishing my college degree was always something that I wanted to do. In fact, in 2006, when we moved to Murfreesboro, one big draw was the fact that Middle Tennessee was in our community, and it would be very easy for me to go back if and when I decided to. Well, I decided to. And 2009, I started back at MTSU as a political science major and a history and education minor, and completed my degree in 2012. And then went on and got my master's degree in educational leadership, because once I got into the school system, I saw a lot of things that I wanted to change. So I decided what's the best way to change something in the schools was to become a principal. So I started working towards my educational leadership degree, graduated in 2016, December of 2016. But it was around that time that, kind of the world shifted.
Yeah, there's an election, right? There's an election.
Yeah. But after I finished my degree in educational leadership, I decided I needed to get involved in politics, and decided to run for Congress. And that kind of changed the whole trajectory. But that's why I decided to go back to college, because my daughter convicted me for making her do something that I hadn't done.
Well, then I'm going to do the follow-up. So, you made a broad allusion to it, but you got involved in politics, and you've always voted, you always participated, you got government. But what made you click to say, I want to move from the educational aspect of the Rutherford County, but now I want to get involved in the political community as well?
Sure. So I've always been a fixer. And when I see a problem, I immediately start to figure out how to make things better, how to make things easier, smoother transitions. And after the 2016 election, I just saw a very broken country. And so my mind immediately started going into this fixer mode. What can I do? What can I do personally to make this better? And so I went to the Women's March in Nashville with 20,000 of my closest friends, and was actually inspired at the Women's March to run for office. I was looking around at the sea of people. There were people standing on the bridge, waving their signs. There was so much love and anger and frustration and passion that was demonstrated at the Women's March in Nashville, that it was for the first time in several months that I didn't feel alone. And, of course, I had my family who all felt like me and thought similarly than I did. But, sometimes we do feel like we're kind of the blue dot in the Red Sea. I've heard that expression quite a bit. But at the Women's March, I realized that we were not alone, that there were many more of us, and that we were just starting to let our voices be heard. And there's strength in numbers. So it was in that moment that I decided to run for office. I went home that night and applied for the Emerge program, and I got in, and immediately, started working on putting a campaign together. And it was incredible, and never regret that time.
You ran a hell of a campaign too. I got a question from in my DMs, and this is actually a pretty good one, I thought. It's from John. John lives in Murfreesboro. He says, Mariah, I voted for you against Scott Desjardins in 2018. I'm a Republican. I don't hate Charlie Baum. What is your pitch to a Republican considering you in 2020?
Absolutely. I think, as I said before, it's really important that your representatives know what your issues are and know the things that are important to you. And so being accessible and kind of being seen is something that I think an elected official needs to do. Charlie Baum, as the majority whip, is not going to make any kind of independent decisions. His job is going to be to make sure everybody else falls in line. And while if you are a Republican, some of the things you probably do support that he's voting for. But overall, if you look at how he has the things that he has supported across the line, I believe that there are a lot of things that are being passed right now that aren't really beneficial for Rutherford County. So we really need to make sure that we are looking at how people live their values, not just what they say their values are.
I think what's so interesting is Charlie kind of comes off as a nice guy, but he gets caught up in the culture wars, and he gets caught up in things that things that seem to hurt Rutherford County. And his voucher vote to me was stunning. I mean, this man, God bless him, he's an educator. He at a public school, at a public institution. So that vote, I will never quite understand what his thoughts were on that. I got one more question. Hold up, let me find it here. Let's see. Oh, Mariah, you ran a very strong campaign in 2018. I heard you had good fundraising numbers. What's your momentum looking like so far? And actually, if you want to tell a little bit about that fundraising numbers, just so folks know, the thing about Mariah is she's going to run a great campaign. She's going to run a hell of a campaign, and you should go donate to her and me if you don't mind, but help her. But tell me a little bit about your momentum and also campaigning in the context of this coronavirus that has us all stuck at home.
Yeah, it's definitely very different. I had a pretty slow start running for Congress because I was a public school teacher with very few connections. And it was not the ability to raise money had a lot to do with the work that I put in and the effort that really was made, the relationships that I built over time. And so one great thing about having had such a successful run in 2018 is I've been able to maintain a lot of those relationships. And so I feel pretty confident. We didn't start the campaign until really the end of, we were kind of putting things together in February. And the plan was to launch the campaign right after the presidential primary. And the reason we were going to do that is because everybody was so focused on the presidential primary. We're like, let's get through that and really start hitting it after that. Well, Election Day happened to also be the same day that we had a major tornado come through Nashville. So it was a very distracting time. And then, of course, we started falling into the COVID-19 kind of mid-March. And so I was definitely disappointed in my own self, I guess, in my turnout in terms of fundraising. But actually, overall, we did very well. So we were able to actually be the top fundraiser for Q1 for any challenging state house candidate in the state. So we were, like I said, we were the top fundraiser, and we did that in a very short amount of time, in about 3 weeks' time. And a lot of that had to do with the relationships that I built in my congressional campaign and the trust that I built by people knowing that I'm going to use the money wisely and work hard all the way through till November. Now,
go ahead. Please go ahead. What were you saying?
Oh, no, jump in. Go ahead.
Well, you, of course, still need resources, right? I mean, so you still need resources. So how can we donate to you? How can we contribute to the cause?
Yeah, so I have a website at mariahfortn.com, Mariah for Tennessee. Mariahfortn.com, you can go ahead and donate there. The maximum contribution is $1,600 per cycle, which means that you can give up to $3,200 by November. So I'll just put that plug in there in case anybody is just itching to write that check.
Write a check.
Yeah, or you can actually send a check to my post office box that's also available on my website as well, and you can get a check to me that way. Happy to get you that information, but I do need resources, and so that's kind of transitioning to the idea of what does it look like to campaign amidst COVID. It is very different. We actually had a pretty aggressive door knocking campaign in 2018, and we're planning on doing the same thing in 2020. Right now is not the best time to knock doors, not the best time to have events and get-togethers. And so my campaign slogan of 2018, "Have you met Mariah?" It's a little harder to meet Mariah in 2020. And so we've been doing a lot of phone banking. So we've been doing outreach to voters to kind of do check-in calls and see how people are doing, see what they need. We've been volunteering at a couple of food banks and doing meal distribution for people. And so trying to meet people's needs as we can. And so that's been something that we did a lot in 2018 as well, but definitely has become a bigger focus, I guess, the service side of the campaign. And more work on social media. We've been doing a Facebook Live event every Monday called Mondays with Mariah, and we have different community leaders, small business owners that are, that come in and talk about things that are impacting them, especially during this crisis. So last week we had the owners of the Alley on Main, and they spoke a lot about how they've kind of managed their small business through this pandemic, what they're doing to move forward. And also, I wanted to highlight the fact that they were huge contributors to the community meal program called Meals for Hearts, where they donated 60 meals every day for the entire 7 weeks of the pandemic. Now they're reopened at a modified capacity. So the Meals for Hearts program did stop at this time, but we were able to highlight them and all the work that they've done, which has been incredible. This upcoming week, Monday at 4 o'clock, we'll be talking to a couple of community members who actually have recovered from COVID. And so they're going to talk about their experience, what they went through, what their family went through, what happened with their jobs over the course of their sickness with COVID, their experience with COVID-19. So it's kind of informational as well as, I just think interesting and an opportunity to meet new people in the community.
Well, and Mariah, I really appreciate you joining with us tonight. And I think that the answer to so many folks across this community and across the state even is, yes, we have met Mariah and we like what we see. And I'm confident you're going to win this election. And you have my support. My family's been in this state house district since 1987, 86. You have our support. And so we'll do whatever. We'll fight like hell to make sure you win this seat. So I really appreciate you joining me tonight. And stay safe and best of luck.
Yeah, thank you. You too, Chris. Thanks.
Thanks. Mariah Phillips is a fighter. She is a woman who deserves your support. I know her as a competitor and a friend, and I know that she would make a great representative. I want to talk really briefly about where we are in my race. As you know, I am running hard against Congressman Desjardins. We have about 190 days until Election Day. We are ramping up across the state. The biggest way that you can show support right now is to be a monthly contributor to my campaign. If you can give $5 to my campaign, I would appreciate it, because this goes a far way. What you invest now means that we can spend energy with our voters and not on the phones raising money going forward. You can go to ChristopherHale.com and be a contributor. Our Hale Yes signs are out in full force in every county across this community. If you want to sign, you can go to ChristopherHale.com/Hale Yes, HALE yes, like the sign above there. I want you to get the word out. We are going to win this election. I want you to know that. We're going to beat Congressman Desjardins. Congressman Desjardins, you have never met him. He doesn't know you. You don't know him. But you do know me, and I know you. And if we haven't met yet, you know that we're going to meet, because I show up when Congressman Desjardins hides. The scandals of a decade ago have kept him in hiding. He's not coming back, but you know that I will be here, and you have the evidence I'm fighting for you and your family. Next week, I'm going to be joined by some folks that have been helping to date already in this campaign, including a woman, Leslie Morris, who I worked with her local bank and my government contacts to help her secure a $168,000 loan for her small business, which trains teachers across the mid-state, and she's going to be joining us next week. But the evidence is there that I will fight for you and your family, and we're going to win this election. So if you feel the energy I do, if you feel the urgency I do, if you feel the love of home and country that I do, I ask you to join me in this journey. Go to ChristopherHale.com. Join the fight today. Let's fight like hell. Let's win this election. Let's bring the change we need to Middle Tennessee, and let's make life better for you and your family. Thank you for joining us, and until next time, have a good night.